Yeah, so welcome to the podcast. How's been the day?
Thank you. My day's been good. Mostly just trying to do applications here and there. It's scholarship season. So yeah.
Wow, that's great. And I actually noticed the Chevening scholarship is also out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So working around making a plan
Yeah.
for how I'm going to go about everything is pretty much most of what I've been doing for the day to day. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. And talking of plans, how's your weekend like? Knowing to say we just had the agriculture and commercial show. Yeah, period.
I went hiking on what day was that? Saturday morning, but pretty much spent the rest of the afternoon hanging out with friends that we had gone on the hike with. And then I planned to go for the show on Monday, but a friend of mine told me there was lots of people. And I just got overwhelmed by it and I said, okay, I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
I should have gone on Friday. I think there's better numbers on a Friday. So yeah, I missed my chance. I need to plan better next year. Yeah.
Wow, it's interesting. Yeah. And is that because of like COVID? I mean, events now being more open after a number of events now being possible after the COVID period.
Yeah, I think so, because this should be the first show since 2019.
Yeah.
For 2 years, I don't think there's been, I might be mistaken, but I think for the past 2 years, there hasn't been an agric show. So everybody is just, ready to get back into it. So yeah, I didn't think there would be that many people, but I was hearing of people that were on the line for like hours. So I said, oof, I will not attempt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, of course, today we plan on talking about your career in law and getting to hear a few tips of how you've actually made it through the legal fraternity and what advice you'd actually give someone who's actually starting out in a career of being a lawyer or any law-related career. So to begin with, maybe you can just give us a background of who Emanuela is and how you started off. If you want, to could even start from maybe like your passion when you're young and how you finally realized that, or how your passion changed into finally picking up law.
Sometimes I think to myself that was I cheated into it? You know what I mean? Was this really my idea? I've been asking myself that question, but I'm glad it came my way. I don't think I would have gone any other way, really. So, well, for as far back as I can remember, I was that kid who always knew what I wanted to do. Asked me at 5 years old, oh, I want to be a lawyer, and this and that. So I guess I would say that I was very sure, and I don't know. I think my parents probably helped along the way because they were also always just like, "Oh, she's the lawyer," and I'm like, okay, that's what makes me think, was I cheated into it? But either way, I did grow a passion for it. I knew that that's what I wanted to do going into secondary school, going into university. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I guess I just always worked towards that. A fun fact is I took French in my first year of university, knowing that I needed to make it into law school because going forward, I had no plans of taking French if I didn't make it into law school. As you know, at the University of Zambia, the first year, well, now it's I think they have direct entry, but previously you go into a non-quarter year and you take courses that you get credits or points for whatever major you want to go into going forward. So yeah, even that was just a strategic move, knowing that I want to end up in law school.
Yeah.
So yeah, went through law school, went through Ziali, and I actually knew about Ziali when I was in secondary school. So that's how committed I was to the cause
Wow.
of becoming a lawyer. I would look up everything and anything and just read. I remember, I think there was an article in the paper about a lady's story. So yeah, I agree, stories are really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lady's story about her path, to becoming a lawyer. And part of that was Ziali. Of course, she was talking about the challenges around that. And yeah, it's an age-old story about, the hurdles that people have to overcome when they're there.
Yeah.
Somehow I managed to pass on first attempt. Honestly, I think because I credit it to having tasted failure in university and sort of knowing then how to tackle a high pressure environment, how to not make excuses when you're in a place, and the excuses, they're valid, you have valid points as to why it's tough, why it's hard, and I don't know.
Wow.
Sometimes I think that I just feel like I was a little better prepared going in. I developed some skills going in. That's what I would credit it to. Not even to say that other people that went on to pass on third or second attempt were not as prepared, but just for my own path and for my own temperament, I think I was in the right frame of mind when I got there, and adjusting along the way. So yeah, passed the bar, and so far my experience has been working in private law firms.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's general practice firms. So you're pretty much doing everything across the spectrum, from family law to commercial law, corporate law. You get to experience different branches of the law. You get to experience litigation. So that's going into court, defending matters, just the whole life cycle of what a court case looks like. So it gives you that opportunity, and that's what my experience has been so far. But I guess what's worth mentioning,
Yeah.
and what connected us was that after passing the bar, I get to the other side, and suddenly I don't know what I want to do. Going from,
Wow.
that child that always knows what they want to do.
Wow, well,
I
that's
just,
interesting. Maybe can I
yeah,
just hold you there, like just
yeah,
keep
sure.
everyone in suspense before we come to what happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you talked about the part of you getting to, I mean, by the way, congratulations that you passed on first attempt. Then you talked about the part of learning about Ziali from high school. Did you have like people coming through to tell you about Ziali, or how did you get to learn about it like at such an early time?
No, I honestly cannot recall anyone ever telling me about it. Just that lady's story in the paper. Just her description about it, about the fact that you have to go, that the bar exam in Zambia is taken at Ziali, and
Yeah.
how you have to juggle working and studying. So really nobody else ever told me about it. And I don't think I ever asked, unless, as we got further down into law school, going into fourth year, then, it becomes a very real thing, because the way the calendar year was set up was the year that you were graduating university was the year you were then getting admission into Ziali. Actually, the time that we were we were getting enrolled into Ziali, we
Yeah.
hadn't even graduated officially from UNZA. We had our results, but we hadn't graduated. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that was one burning question. But yeah, let you then continue with the part of now you're done with school and then getting into the industry, and then now you go blank. Yeah, getting to hear what comes up next.
Yeah. So a lot of things were not what I expected them to be, for one. So I was increasingly dissatisfied. I said, I worked my whole life thinking that this was going to fulfill me in some way.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't, it just wasn't what I expected. A lot of things were not running as smoothly, to put it lightly, as I used to think they ran. I think especially getting a taste of litigation, it tended to be quite frustrating for me. Like, systems that I thought would be in place were not in place. Things that seemed obvious were not in place. So I really felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I started to look up what's going to be relevant in the legal field in the next 5 to 10 years. What's an emerging field in the law, and what do I want to specialize in, or what do I want to know more about? Because of course, being a general practice firm, you're having this and that, just a mixed bag, really. So, yeah. And at the time, I can't quite say that any one of the branches of the law that I had been exposed to had caught my attention, had really gripped my attention, where I felt like, oh, this is something I want to dig my heels into, and this is something I'm very curious about. I hadn't yet gotten to that point. So Google is your friend. And somehow I can't remember what exactly I Googled, but I came across legal tech, or law and technology, as an emerging field, and pretty much the future of the law and where the law was headed. Yeah. So the incorporation of that was what I came across, and so that's how my interest sparked, and I started to look into it and got very curious about the whole subject.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. So actually, before we come to legal tech, maybe just in retrospect, do you think maybe other careers also have a similar start as well, where reality seems to be different from what is perceived while in high school or in university? Maybe just from your own opinion, like, how do you relate that with people that you've been around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we don't have enough information going into most of our careers. You never really get to know the detail of it. And I've seen it, even with some of my friends. So you have people who studied, maybe their major was psychology, and because they thought that there's no career in Zambia down that path, they ended up just going into the bank, or just going into a different field altogether, and not necessarily sticking to psychology. But you find that there's actually there's a big need for the professions that are around psychology and therapy and all of that. And so really, it's that people don't know. I have a friend that is now really just carving out her path in speech language pathology, and these are things that I bet a lot of people that graduated with a psychology degree did not know were available to them. So I don't think that it's necessarily unique to the law. I think it's just that generally we don't know what is possible with the skills or the qualifications that we acquire.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And I guess maybe it's also because of how now like education, the internet, and just how the modern world has made so many things possible and more branches coming up. So now going into the main subject, legal tech. What was your journey like now, like when you began looking into it? Like what were some of the exciting things that you discovered? And how has it been like looking up more of these? And have you had any legal cases around legal tech that you've gotten to service?
Okay. So it has been a very exciting journey, and it's what's just very exciting and sometimes even overwhelming about everything is it also has like so many possibilities, right?
Yeah.
There's so many possibilities and so many career paths to take just within that space. And just to mention also that in the UK, I think it's mostly referred to as LawTech. That's something again that I discovered just along the way. Because for a time I was very confused, and it seems people are still, the jury is still out on what the definition is and what the official term should be. But I generally refer to it as legal tech.
Yeah.
So within that, you have technology that helps lawyers serve their clients more effectively. So that's on the internal part, right? So you have applications or systems or generally technology that helps lawyers get rid of the mundane sort of routine work that they do. So automating some of the work that they do. That's one side of it. The other side is creating products from the, services like drafting a will, for example, or drafting any kind of contract or agreement, packaging that into a product that somebody can buy off of the internet or can access off the internet. So you have that aspect as well. But I think one aspect that for me has been that I would say right now has captured my attention the most is legal design, which is pretty much human-centered design applied in the field of law. And, yeah, I'm seeing you smiling.
Yeah, I'm recalling the time that we did that human-centered design project with the startup. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the story, actually. I just knew that I was interested in tech and startups and just innovation, basically, is what had captured my attention, the innovation side of it. And as you know, I would just, I tried to immerse myself in Bongo Hive events. Like I'll just show up to a fintech event or whatever would be going on there, just sit at the back or just hang around and to learn how people that are innovative think and how they see the world and the possibilities that they see. And I was very fascinated by that type of thinking, that type of space. And so when we then took the human-centered design course and tried that project and everything like that, it really fascinated and it really captured me. And so that's how come right now legal design is what I'm really interested in. But also because I think that it's the most applicable in our context, because our context has a lot of challenges in terms of how many people can actually access digital tools. So because of that unique or that challenge, if I could call it that, I think that human-centered design thinking or design thinking generally is the best approach to solving the problems that we have. As you know, it's people, process, then tech. So I think that's what I like about it. That is, you're not just fishing in the dark. You're not just coming up with this fancy solution that you think people need,
Yeah.
but you're actually, going to the people, understanding who they are, understanding what their needs are, understanding how they currently access legal services. What legal services do they access the most? And then now solving for that solution, but solving with them, not in isolation. So really, legal design is what has captured my heart the most. There's a lot of many fascinating other fields like legal process management. I know that there's some people that are into artificial intelligence, but mostly on the side of online courts and that type of thing. So even just in that niche, the possibilities are endless, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. I remember, I think, how when we were dating, like during during the actual projects, like we had a whole different perspective of what customers needed, and then finally at the very end of it all, and applying all the empathy and getting all the data from our target audience and marketeers, and learning to say what their needs are were actually different from what we thought was actually their main burning need. So I'm now imagining how all that would now come in and really transform things, where you build like tailored legal solutions for people that need them, and how that would actually scale up the uptake, as well as, I think, even just a positive um, like just the positive tone that people have towards law, and just towards the gears of justice. Maybe
Yeah.
from your professional experience, could you cite maybe just maybe some examples of certain, maybe, I guess it would be court cases, and I know the different types of maybe services. So maybe certain services that you offered that maybe in one case helped you feel so proud because like you touched maybe like the most vulnerable person, and in another case, like it was something that was so breathtaking career-wise, even though it didn't have like that empathy aspect to it. Like, have you had maybe some cases from these two scenarios?
Um, I would say that on the impact side, in terms of people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Most of them that I would think of that I've felt like, okay, this really is making a difference in a real person's life, right? As opposed to sometimes corporations, you might be a bit detached. But let me say that because some of them are still ongoing,
Yeah.
let me say the family law ones, especially the ones that have had to do with the administration of an estate. And just to say that that's one place that I think is a low-hanging fruit in terms of applying legal design.
Yeah.
Because that on face value, it doesn't seem like it's impacting people's lives so much when a family member dies, especially if that family member was the breadwinner and they've left behind all these assets, and the extended family dynamics in the Zambian context are not to be played with. They do their interests. I know what the law says and how that it doesn't extend to some certain categories of extended family, but that's where the problems begin, you see. So I would say that working around those types of cases have made me see how that if the law is applied well and applied in a manner that's empathetic to those people's emotions and everything, the grief also that comes with that type of case is just, it needs empathy. It needs empathy. It needs you looking into what really are these people's needs and how can these needs be addressed before it gets to this point where they're going to court. So I would say that working on those cases and getting some wins in those cases is what has felt like, okay, this makes a difference. This actually really matters. Yeah, that would be my response to the empathy side of things. And then on the other side, sorry, just repeat the other question.
All right, so one question was impact to the communities, and then the other part was impact on your career, where you felt like you did it, like you solved a very big case that professionally made you feel so proud.
Well, I will say very quickly.
Well, without specifics, I mean.
No. What I was going to say. What I was going to say was that my career is still very, very young, actually, Joseph. Been practicing for a very nice and humble 5 years. So I like to believe that my best years are ahead of me. And really the most complex and we did it, or I did it, is ahead of me, really. But I would say that we did some work for a client. Let me give an example of the education institution, right? The client was an education institution, and their graduation was almost not taking off because there was a legal challenge by a group of students. And I think what was thrilling about it was the real possibility of the graduation ceremony not taking place. Because at that point, you can imagine this is a week before the graduation ceremony, and so much money has been invested into preparing for the ceremony. Everything is in place pretty much. So a challenge like that can throw off any client, any corporate client that has got sponsors on board. Everybody is at the starting point. They're ready to take off for the race. They're literally just waiting for the gun to go off, and they're running. So I think just how quickly we swept in to mitigate the situation was a thrill for me. That's obviously just one of the times that I felt a thrill and a rush of it. I think also most recently, this one is ongoing. I worked on it, but now I'm not working on it anymore, but just cracking what the real issue was, cracking. So one of the things that you're taught straight up in civil procedure is identifying the parties, right? The correct parties in a case. And so in this particular case, cracking, the party that ended up being the actual party that should sue or pursue the case was a thrill. And because it's ongoing, I'm struggling to give all the details. But I would say that that's another thing that was really thrilling, because on face value, the seemingly obvious party turned out not to be the actual party that should have pursued the case. So, swiftly changing strategy and then realizing that in other jurisdictions, there was actually authorities and case laws supporting the position that we eventually decided to take was just a thrill and amazing discovery for me. And I'm anxiously waiting for the case to be concluded so that I can freely talk about it and take my win. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So speaking as an African and a Zambian, and coming from, of course, a family, and you've mentioned how people have challenges with getting to have the full service of the law and having the law work in their hands to protect them against maybe extended family members. From a broader angle, do you, maybe from your own opinion and from the people that you've interacted with, like the clients, do you think we as a community trust the law that much? And maybe what are some of the strides that you've taken to maybe bridge that gap, if at all? There's still gap, there's still more room for further improvement.
Yeah, you know, I think that there's still a lot of mystery around the law, and it doesn't help that our laws are still in this very colonial language, just language, outdated language. Nobody speaks like that. Nobody says canon knowledge. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? And I know that there's a lot of law reform going on right now to try and improve that type of language. But it's still not, the fact that people can't understand the literal meaning of the words in the laws makes it inaccessible. So people don't trust things that they don't know or things that they can't understand. And so there's really a huge gap to bridge there, to make laws more understandable, more accessible. We need to distill the law. We need to make it digestible, in a language that people understand, in a language, in Bemba, in Nyanja, Tonga, whatever language they speak, right? They should be able to access the law in that language. And this is not even like a far-fetched thing that can't be done. This is already being done in within the region, in places like Kenya and Uganda. You have legal tech startups that are making legal information more accessible to people. So they're not necessarily providing legal services, but they're just making legal information more accessible to people, which helps people protect themselves and just helps them know how to assert their rights, right? Because that's really the base of it. You don't know what you don't know. And people may say they don't have legal problems, but it's just because they don't know they have legal problems. And I think for me, that's one thing that I've seen to be a big, big challenge. So I think that is a great starting point for us, is just making legal information more accessible in a format that people can understand.
That's interesting. And maybe from your own exposure, could you maybe just share some of the experiences you've had with communities that are making those steps towards using, so you said digital tech, LawTech to then bridge this gap and bring a bit more awareness and use of law around, within families?
Okay, so one of my earlier exposures, I would say, has been participating in some of, so in Kenya, they have a legal tech hub called Lawyers Hub. So they have programs, they usually have like a festival, I think they call it a festival, but they have events where they, you online, you can participate. I hope they continue online, so that even if I'm in Zambia, I can still participate, because I think I greatly benefited, even if I'm not in Kenya. They did have a hackathon around data privacy laws, the Kenyan data privacy laws, of course, and that was around the time of COVID. How is people's data being handled? Is the law being followed? But then if people don't even know how their data is supposed to be collected, then they can't assert their rights in terms of their medical records and things like that. So I took part in that hackathon, and it was just very enlightening for me. It was a great experience interacting, first of all, with lawyers from another jurisdiction, for one. Interacting with, I think we had a programmer on our, no, we had a law student. So that was also very nice, having a law student on the team. And just brainstorming around that, brainstorming. It was a policy hackathon. So for that one, it wasn't necessarily legal tech proper, but it was still around tech because the data was being stored digitally and was being collected digitally. So that was very exciting and very interesting, and just seeing how how impactful it can be. It just seems like a small thing, collecting data from patients, but it has legal implications, which I think legal professionals should be interested in and should weigh in on. So that's one of the ones that I've been involved in. Another one, most recently, which was, I think, very enlightening for me, was I was part of a project and a Bible school, actually. Yeah, interestingly enough, Rema Bible College in Lusaka. So final year projects, they're around different themes, and one of the themes was justice and equality. And for obvious reasons, I was in the justice and equality team. And so on that team, we were able to come up with a solution that helps spread legal information. So it's a basic USSD platform helping to spread legal information. That was the basic idea. But just going on the street and talking to people, just doing random street surveys, it was amazing to see how much people don't know. And these are people who are in the city, the capital city. And you're shocked at what they don't know. And so you start to think, what about people in the rural areas? How are their rights being protected if they don't even know what their rights are? It's actually, I think more urgency needs to be put on this issue, and just more political will probably weighing in on it as well. Because those people that didn't even know where the High Court was, and I think that's an important place to know. If you've lived in Lusaka any amount of time, you should know where the courts are, because you will need to go. You might need to go there one day. Hopefully you don't. That's the idea. But it's something as big.
Documents would even go there to certify stuff. So.
I see. Yeah, but also that people don't even know how to navigate those places, and then they end up being. There are people also who are opportunistic, because they know that people don't know how to navigate those places. People don't know how to access those places. People don't know that those places are so accessible. It's as easy as just walking in. They make the system so complicated because the information around how to access those places is not easy to find. It's not everywhere. And you just hear the wildest things about, and you tell people, no, what do you mean you had to pay that much money? And so because legal information is not easily accessible, a lot of people are finding themselves in even bigger problems, because by the time a case reaches the court, it's really that, ideally, it's really that it cannot be resolved any other way. So the court is not, it's like a hospital, You're going there because you're sick. You're going there because you have a problem that needs to be solved. Now you can imagine you're trying to find a solution to your problem, and somebody else comes and complicates that process for you. I think it's very sad, and that's why I'm saying that I think it must be treated as a matter of urgency. People must know the basic ways of accessing help, and not just the courts, right? Because they're not the only people that can provide legal help.
Yeah.
Some people don't even know that they can go to legal aid, for example. People don't know that there's a toll-free line for that's under victim support unit or GBV type of resources. Those are things that people don't know, but those are things that people need every other day. If it's GBV and just all this sexual harassment, defilement, all those types of issues, people don't know how to access help, when it comes to that. And really, I think that it's a matter of urgency. And if digital tools can help to do that, I think that, it should be prioritized, because another challenge that in our region, in our context, you'll find that research is showing that there's not a lot of investment in justice startups, right? And I think that the interest is growing now, and things are improving, but because it has such a huge social, it's anchored in so much social impact, social issues, the commercial side is not easy to structure. It's not easy to structure a self-sustaining justice project.
Yeah.
So because of the huge initial investment required, I think there needs to be more interest in this field to support people that want to bridge the gap between those that know their rights and those that don't. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And yeah, I mean, like you're actually mentioning certain solutions that are also actually new to me, like, and how looking at law, something that in most cases would think, well, law never catches up to technology. And they've given quite a number of examples of how like technology and law can work hand in hand, both internally in servicing people within the legal fraternity and externally in servicing the community out there, which is, I think, really interesting. And yeah, and it's inspiring to see that passion, or even a church, like the legal part still follows you.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe could you tell us something about your blog and how you're doing, trying to connect more, more young people that are starting up in the legal profession?
Yeah, that's another passion project. Another passion project. Yeah. So it really just started from conversations between me and my friend Edwina. She co-authors the blog actually. So, we would just we were sharing our frustrations. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of things that I found on the other side that I didn't know, that I didn't expect. And so we would just talk to each other about, hey, I never thought that this is what things were like on the other side. And so we were just looking back and thinking, I wish somebody had told me, then I would have managed my expectations, or I would have navigated the space much easier, much quicker. And so, we would talk to people, talk to senior lawyers, and, there were some would just give you like a lot of wisdom and insight. And so we started to think, hey, what about we start sharing this with other people? So if Edwina talks to somebody and they give her insight on advice on something, she would share it with me. And that would be the same with me as well. And so our curiosity just grew in saying, hey, what's your story? You've come this far, you've achieved this much. What's your story? How did you navigate? And this is with people at different stages, because, sometimes you even just need advice from your peers, people that are at the same level as you, but maybe are doing better or coping better, or whatever it is. They've overcome certain hurdles that you haven't, or they're just in a different area of practice that you haven't yet gone into, but you would like to go into. So it's good to hear from them as well. So really the blog is to try and create a community of people that can share their experiences, that have, an empathetic community that helps each other get ahead. You're 10 steps ahead. Which staircase did you use? Did you run? Did you walk? How did you get there? Stories are just incredible. One story may not be relatable to the next person, but may be relatable to the other person. And I think also it just opens up people's eyes, law students especially, as to possible career paths. It broadens the spectrum really. apart from just thinking, oh, being a lawyer is just going to court. If the more stories we tell, the more paths we expose, the more people get to know that they don't need to be alone. They don't need to walk the path alone, and they don't need to be shocked by what they'll find down the path. So that's really the whole idea with the blog. And we love to hear feedback. We love to hear ideas. And so we hope that more and more people will show interest and, even just volunteer their stories and say, hey, look, this is how it was for me. It could help someone. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And I like how the content is actually so much applicable to someone who's even not a lawyer. I find it quite useful and relevant to me as well. I think some of the things that you mentioned are the bits and pieces of facts that can actually help people in other careers as well. Maybe for the sake of viewers and people listening into the podcast, do you mind just sharing just saying out loud the link? What's your URL to the blog?
Okay, so it's dearrookieadvocate.com. Very easy to remember.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. And very few blogs in Zambia have established domains where you buy your own domain. You still hear .wordpress or Medium, which is nice, encouraging to see how much you're investing into the blog.
We're really passionate about it, and we said we want to do it well. We don't want to just tick the box that we did it. We want to do it well, and we want to keep improving on it. So yeah, we did have to invest a little something to get that customized URL. Yeah.
It's nice. Hoping more people get to visit dearrookieadvocate.com and getting to meet the other Emanuela on the other side of life behind the blog. It's been a pleasure having you, Emanuela. Would you have any final comments? Anything that you'd like to share with maybe someone starting up in any career, or especially in the legal fraternity?
Thanks for having me, Joseph. It has really been a pleasure. It's always a great time talking to you. Yeah. I think that the one thing that I have come to appreciate in the past 5 years of practicing law is that curiosity will take you places, Stay curious, stay learning, don't lose your sense of wonder. There's so much to know, there's so much to discover. Whatever field you may be in, I think that I also get fascinated by the things that people discover in their own unique paths, I think that learn how to learn. I know that sounds funny, but really not, we think that we know how to learn, but it's also an art, it's also a skill. So stay curious. In 2 words is what I would say. Stay curious.
Wow, that's interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning how to learn or improving on how I learn. Yeah. Thank you very much, and wishing you a great week ahead.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.